Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your kind introduction. Today, I'm going to talk about managing post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. Why are we talking about this? It's a very important topic for, especially if people have post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation on exposed areas. It reduces their self-esteem and reduces their quality of life. So they would come to you for treatment, and that is the reason why we're talking about this condition today. These are images of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. The first one due to acne, contact dermatitis, and drug reaction. PIH is defined as overproduction and or irregular distribution of pigment on the skin after any inflammatory process. The incidence in light-skinned individuals, it's very low. And some studies have shown that in Fitzpatrick type 3 to 6 skin type, the incidence of PIH is more than 65%. Any age and any gender can be affected. The causes can range from trauma to burns to infections, eczema, allergic reactions, insect bites, photosensitivity, psoriasis, lichen planus, and it can be also iatrogenic, following surgical or physical procedures carried out on the skin. The color range in PIH may vary from light tan, that is in light skins, to brown, and the light tan to brown is usually epidermal pigmentation. Then it can also range from bluish purple to gray to black, and usually this is due to dermal pigmentation. The depth of pigmentation can be ascertained by using the Wood's lamp examination. If under Wood's lamp the pigmentation appears to be more accentuated, it's epidermal. And if it remains the same under Wood's light, then it is dermal pigmentation. The duration is also important. Recent changes show better response to treatment. This slide shows the range of pigmentation from light tan in light-skinned people, brown to blue-black in dark-skinned people. What is the pathophysiology of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which from now on I will call PIH? Any epidermal inflammatory response leads to release and oxidation of arachidonic acid to prostaglandins and leukotrienes, which alter the activity of melanocytes. There is increased synthesis and increased transfer of melanosomes to the surrounding keratinocytes. This leads to epidermal melanosis. Inflammation which disrupts the basal layer and the basement membrane, then this leads to release of melanosomes into the dermis. They get trapped in macrophages in papillary dermis. This is called pigmentary incontinence. And this leads to dermal pigmentation. Also, fibroblast-derived melanogenic growth factors affect the mesenchymal epithelial interaction, which again modulates melanocyte function, and this increases the dermal melanosis. This is a slide showing the histopathology of PIH. As you can see, there is a lot of activity going on in the basal layer where the melanocytes are producing melanosomes, which are being transferred into the keratinocytes and causing pigmentation of the epidermis. Then there seems to be disruption of the basement membrane, which is causing a spilling of melanosomes into the dermis, which is called pigmentary incontinence. And this gives rise to dermal melanosis. So in this slide, we can see epidermal as well as dermal melanosis. Now, we can't be like this esteemed dermatologist who says that if it doesn't itch, you don't have to worry about it. Of course, you have to do something about it if it is so intense and the patient's quality of life is reduced. So what is the management of PIH? The first thing that you have to do is to manage the underlying cause. You have to take a history, investigate and diagnose, and then manage the underlying condition like eczema, acne, psoriasis, etc. Then you take a history of patient's drug intake, because there are many drugs which increase PIH. So if the patient is, if the patient is taking drugs like minocycline, amiodarone, antimalarials, hormone therapy, other drugs like clofazimine, zidovudine, arsenic, silver, gold, mercury, nitrogen mustard, 5-FU, bleomycin, doxorubicin, cyclophosphamide, any of these can accentuate PIH. Also, you have to rule out conditions which are differential diagnoses for PIH, and which inherently present with hyperpigmentation, not necessarily through an inflammatory process, but they just present with hyperpigmentation. And these are conditions like affiliates, lentigo, chloasma, Addison's disease, hemochromatosis, lichen planus, acanthosis nigricans, pityriasis versicolor, and these need to be investigated and managed specifically for their underlying etiology, even though the pigmentation may be managed in the same way as post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So these are some images of these conditions which are a differential diagnosis for PIH. Lichen planus, Addison's disease, pityriasis versicolor, acanthosis nigricans, amiodarone pigmentation, photosensitive pigmentation. Now, specific management of the pigmentation. The mainstay of topical treatment is by use of a physical and or chemical sunscreen, which has a high SPF of 50 or above. And this has to be applied religiously every morning and even repeated if the patient is going to be outdoors. There's a whole array of depigmenting agents which are available, both locally in the Kenyan market as well as outside. But I have highlighted here the most tried and tested and investigated depigmented agents, and which are the most popular in use for reducing pigmentation. And these are like retinoids, tranexamic acid, hydroquinone, which is the oldest depigmenting agent, trichloroacetic acid, steroids, niacinamide, glutathione, salicylic acid. And then there are others which are fairly new, like aloin, which is from aloe vera, pycnogenol, and others like vitamin C and glucosamine and vitamin E. Now, on this chart, although it's a very busy slide, I have highlighted these main depigmenting agents and their strengths. The lower strengths are the ones which are used for topical application, and the higher strengths are the ones which are used in chemical peel solutions. So this is quite a comprehensive chart showing all the possible depigmenting agents which can be used in PIH. What is the mechanism of action of these bleaching and lightening agents? They competitively inhibit tyrosinase synthesis and its maturation. They also facilitate the formation of pheomelanin, which is the lighter melanin, rather than the dark melanin, which is the eumelanin. They inhibit the transport of melanosomes from melanocytes to keratinocytes. Some of them also have a keratolytic effect and exfoliative effect, like the retinoids and the salicylic acid preparations. Others have antioxidant effects like the vitamin C, vitamin E, and there are yet others which have anti-inflammatory effects which bring about reduction in PIH. These are like steroids and a few others. So these agents act anywhere along this pathway from the beginning of tyrosine through the conversion to the different types of melanin pigment. This is a more comprehensive chart showing at which stage of melanin synthesis these agents work. Like before melanin synthesis, tretinoin, ceramide, and tranexamic acid are in play. They reduce tyrosinase transcription, tyrosinase glycosylation, and inhibition of plasmin. During melanin synthesis, many of the other depigmenting agents are at play, like hydroquinone, azelaic acid, kojic acid, arbutin, licorice, glucosamine, and these act through tyrosinase inhibition. There are others which are phenolic compounds which act through peroxidase inhibition. Then compounds like ascorbic acid and hydrocumarins, they act through reduction of reactive oxygen species. After melanin synthesis, the agents which affect transfer of melanosomes from the melanocytes into the keratinocytes, and also which affect the tyrosinase degradation are listed on this side. These are namely linoleic acid, niacinamide, retinoids, lactic acid, glycolic acid, corticosteroids, glaberridine, which is arbutin, kojic acid, ascorbic acid, arbutin, and soybean trypsin inhibitor. Now, these depigmenting agents, they are not devoid of side effects. If they're used very continuously and in very high concentrations, they are likely to bring about irritant dermatitis. And this is commonly seen in use of retinoids, like adapalene and tretinoin, and in chemical peel agents. The second side effect which is noticed is surrounding depigmentation or hypopigmentation. And this is common with steroid and hydroquinone use. A well-known side effect of hydroquinone excessive usage is exogenous ochronosis, which are very dark pigmentation deposited deep inside the dermis. Then pseudo-yellow nail syndrome is another side effect which is produced by excessive and prolonged use of hydroquinone. Glutathione has a side effect of an erythematous skin eruption, abnormal LFTs, and fatigue. Steroids can induce atrophy, striae, and telangiectasias. These are the common skin side effects of prolonged and continuous use of depigmenting agents. This is a slide showing ochronosis in a dark-skinned patient after excessive use of hydroquinone. And the one on the right is pseudo-yellow nail syndrome, which is also a side effect of excessive hydroquinone usage. A few words about sun protecting agents, which are, as I said, is the mainstay of treating PIH. There are some sun protecting agents which are organic UVB filters. These are the organic visible light filters. These are PABA derivatives, cyanamates, and salicylates. Then there is a class of organic UVA filters, which are mainly benzophenols. Then broad spectrum filters of the inorganic type are the ones which contain zinc oxide, titanium dioxide, ferrous oxide, calamine, and talc. Systemic photoprotectors, which one can advise patients to use, is like carotene, antimalarials, ascorbic acid, tocopherols, green tea, and PABA. There are also physical therapies which you can use as an adjunct to topical depigmenting agents. And these are chemical peels whereby you can use glycolic acid peels, salicylic acid peels, azelaic acid peels, lactic acid, and also tretinoin. Microdermabrasion is another method whereby you can combine it with topical applications. In microdermabrasion, you use aluminum oxide crystals or the diamond burr to sandblast the skin and cause exfoliation of the epidermal hyperpigmentation. Cryotherapy can also be used as an adjunct, but it should be used in caution and especially in dark-skinned patients. Laser therapies have also been tried for post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. The carbon dioxide ablative surfacing laser with or without fractional thermolysis has been used, and it has been found to be quite successful for epidermal pigmentation. For dermal pigmentation, the Q-switched Nd:YAG laser has been used with low fluence with good results. IPL or intense pulsed light works well in iatrogenic pigmentation. Q-switched ruby laser has been found to produce good results in periorbital hyperpigmentation. This is just a slide to show the chemical peel procedure and the things which are used for it. This is a microdermabrasion machine which shows the use of aluminum oxide crystals in this compartment and the diamond burr probe showing outside the machine. Then this is just a slide to show laser treatment going on. The prognosis is better for epidermal pigmentation of shorter duration. Exposure to sun reverses effect of depigmenting agents. So sun protection is mandatory to sustain effect of treatment. Combination treatments produce better results, meaning that you can combine topical applications with physical treatments, and you can use different type of depigmenting agents cyclically, like you can use hydroquinone for a few weeks and then change over to tretinoin, which you use for a few weeks, and then change back to hydroquinone combinations. Counseling patients guarantees cooperation of the patient and patience during treatment. The average time for improvement with treatment is 3 to 6 months with PIH. I just want to share this slide on how I treat post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. Of course, the first step is to treat the underlying cause. Then the second step, in post-acne mild hyperpigmentation, I prescribe adapalene gel to use at night 2 to 3 times per week, and a non-moisturizing sun-protecting lotion every morning religiously. If the post-acne PIH is severe, I I use tretinoin cream at night 2 or 3 nights per week, and the non-moisturizing SPF 50 every morning religiously. In severe and chronic post-acne hyperpigmentation, I tend to use a 4% hydroquinone lotion for spot application on the dark spots only, and it can be used every night. And I combine this with chemical peels using glycolic acid 30%, salicylic acid 10%, azelaic acid 20%, resorcinol 10%, and tranexamic acid 3%. This is a mixed peel solution, which I have found to produce very good results. In severe PIH due to other causes like eczema or psoriasis or lichen planus, I prescribe a moisturizing sun protecting lotion SPF 50 every morning, and a combination cream at night, which contains 4% hydroquinone, tretinoin 0.025%, and mild steroid like 1% hydrocortisone. And I use this cyclically with tretinoin cream alone. And for all the other nights, I advise to use a cream which is a combination of tranexamic acid, kojic acid, arbutin, vitamin E, mulberry berry extract for all the other nights. In mild hyperpigmentation of short duration, I just advise a sun protection in the morning and this NGL cream, which is a combination cream at night to use every night. So I hope that this slide is helpful for patients for doctors and colleagues who treat a lot of PIH. So what's new in PIH management? There are papers which have come out in which oral isotretinoin has been used to prevent as well as treat PIH in acne patients. There's a new cream which is in the pipeline, which is a decapeptide 12 cream, and it is thought to be 17 times more potent than hydroquinone, but much safer. Another cream which is in the pipeline is a diacnyl cream, which contains retinaldehyde, glycolic acid, and methimazole. It's a mixed cream, and it is also showing some promising results in PIH. So my take-home messages would be, because sun exposure reverses the effect of depigmenting agents, use of sun-protecting creams religiously is the gold standard for treatment of PIH. And apart from treating PIH, the underlying cause must be addressed to clear the underlying problem. Combinations of treatments produce best results. And depigmenting agents like retinoids and hydroquinone should be used at intervals to prevent irritant reactions and ochronosis, respectively. Caution, a word of caution is that do not use the monobenzyl ether of hydroquinone. Instead, use the monomethyl ether of hydroquinone, because the monobenzyl ether has a dangerous side effect of severe depigmentation on the treated sites, as well as distant depigmentation. These are my references for this paper. And I thank you very much for your attention.